Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Long time no see in like real time. As you know, I've been posting my Australia content up until now, which is why I'm making this video. You've probably seen from the title of this video. This is a big life update which will probably end up waffling on for about 15 minutes, but I've tried to make a list of things that I wanted to talk about and just try and like catch you guys up to speed and also make this from my own memories. I do view my YouTube channel as a sort of visual diary for myself to look back on, so I just want to create a cohesive timeline, let you guys know what's happened. I've got a bunch of things written down like I've mentioned. So number one, let's just address the elephant in the room. I'm back from Australia. I'll touch more on this a bit later on in the video, but as you can see, I'm back home, but you actually might not be able to tell that because this is a different room that I was in before. It's a really boring story, but basically I've just changed bedrooms a little bit. I was kind of moving out when I moved to Australia, so packed up most of my stuff, put them in cardboard boxes and moved out of my bedroom. My mum has turned my bedroom into a study because this room used to be the study. It is a very small room and they couldn't really work from home in this tiny little room, and with me gone they decided to make the bigger room the study, which makes sense. I'm 24, there's no ill feeling there whatsoever. This is just how it's happened. I'll overlay some footage of what my bedroom looks like now. They've completely redone it and it looks great. It is a study that both my stepdad and my mum can use. It's just really beneficial, and this is our little spare bedroom what I've taken over for the past month. I've been home for about a month. And another little update is we've got another dog. This is Lola, everyone. She's a greedy dog, but she's a rescue and we love her very much. So now we've got 2 dogs and a cat, but it serves me very well. It is better than the hostel rooms that I was living in before. I was getting a little bit tired of those. You might be able to tell from my like latest Australia vlogs, like near the end, I didn't really want to pick up the camera too much at the end, let alone edit, which is why some of them were quite sporadic. Traveling at the same time as filming every day and editing and trying to do that once a week. I think traveling is literally like a full-time job. You've always got to be planning your next move and it's tiring, and you've always got to be on all the time making new friends. I just reached burnout and I did not really want to film anything in my life. I just wanted to try and enjoy it in the moment, or I just couldn't be bothered, or I just thought what I was doing wasn't interesting enough. So I started to film less, let alone editing. I just had this mental block where I just did not want to sit down and do it. Whenever I did, I would enjoy the editing once I'd sat down to do it, but getting myself to actually sit down and do it was a whole other story, which I really did not want to do, and I don't really want to push myself to do things if I don't want to do them. So that's why some uploads were sporadic, and I've obviously not really been filming anything while I'm at home, just trying to get this content out, which is why it's so backlogged. Today is Tuesday the 16th of May and I left Australia in April. All these videos are so backlogged. I've got a lot of content to get through, so I'm just happy not to be filming anything at the minute. I'm just going to sit and try and power through editing those, getting them up. But the question that you're probably all asking is what happened in Australia? What happened to Australia? You were going to move there, you're on a working holiday visa, and we only stayed, I think, 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks. I stayed an extra week in Cairns that I didn't vlog because essentially me and my friend Lauren went out. You probably noticed her in my vlogs. I talked about it a lot. We started by flying from Glasgow to Cambodia in January. We spent a week in Cambodia, then flew on to Vietnam for 3 weeks, and then we flew from Vietnam to Australia and did a 6-7 week trip up the east coast. Then the plan was like to try and find jobs somewhere, or like a working holiday visa, try and make a life out in Australia. We got to Cairns, which is the last stop on the east coast trip, and Lorna decided that she was going to fly to Bali to meet with her boyfriend, and I kind of booked myself into a hostel in Cairns for a week to try and figure my life out basically. I was alone in a country on the other side of the world and had no plans, no prospects, and it was just starting to get a little bit overwhelming to me. And obviously Cairns is the last stop on the trip, so a lot of us were like talking about being on a working holiday visa that just travelled up the east coast and like finishing the travelling part and looking to move on with the actually living in Australia part. So we were all talking about that. A lot of people decide to finish in Cairns and then try and find work in Cairns because that makes sense, because you've just stopped travelling and that's where you are. A girl in my dorm was talking about it and she was saying that some businesses that she handed her CV into in Cairns told her that they were getting 20 to 50 CVs a day, and that is just ridiculous. and we'd kind of heard this all the way up the East Coast. They were like, oh, there's no jobs in any of the cities, it's absolutely saturated with working holiday makers because they opened the doors after COVID and basically everyone has gone to Australia. It was so busy, it all just seemed to be like 18-19-year-old British people. I literally could count on one hand the amount of Australian people I met on the east coast of Australia. I think they're all on the west coast. There is nobody Australian on the east coast. So overwhelming. And when you hear things like businesses are being given 20 to 50 CVs a day, people with jobs were also still living in the hostels. People were going for jobs specifically that were with hostels so that they had somewhere to live. Even the week that I spent in Cairns, they put posters up on all the dorm rooms saying that the weekly rates for hostels were increasing if you were living there like long-term weekly. And it was just starting to really get me down. I was applying for things and not really hearing back from anything. I didn't have specific hospitality experience, but I had retail experience, and I was even going for like marketing, more career jobs, but then I think they were put off by the fact that it was only like a working holiday visa. I couldn't be guaranteed to stay there longer term than like a year or two. That was the situation out in Australia. I feel like, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but there is a lot of like, my TikTok For You page is like, moved to Australia and lived my best life, and sure, that really works out for some people and I'm really happy for you if it has, but for a lot of people we heard a lot of stories of people running out of money and having to leave Australia. They had nowhere to live, no job, and being on the other side of the world and not knowing anyone and having no one with me and having no plan, like not knowing where I was going to stay the next week. I didn't know if I should fly back to Sydney, and people were saying all the big cities had the same problems, and I know from living and teaching in rural Thailand, I didn't really want to be outside of a big city again for my mental health. So it ultimately came down to the fact that I didn't think I would be happy if I stayed in Australia. Yeah, I'm sure there is work in Australia, and if you really want it you can get it. Like take farm work in the middle of the outback or something like that. But Australia is also a very expensive country, which I'm sure is not a surprise to anyone. However, the issue was lying in the fact that we'd spent quite a lot of money just travelling, and I was in the mindset of I'll make it back when I find work, which is probably true. The wages are a lot higher in Australia to deal with the higher cost of living in Australia, which kind of balances itself out and is fine, but the problem is I didn't know how long it would take me to find a job, and the fact that I was spending money without having any money coming back in was really off-putting to me. Honestly quite scary. I've never really been in that position before, thankfully, and it just threw me for a loop. I didn't know how long I was going to be waiting for a job, spending the amount of money that Australia costs in a hostel with like 10 other people in a room that were also looking for a job. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I kind of decided that I wasn't happy in Australia. It was just really overwhelming to me, and I feel like nobody has really talked about the fact that there's a rental crisis in Melbourne and Sydney. There's so many working holiday makers and they're all trying to find jobs and no one can find a job. Well, I'm sure they can. I don't want this all to be down, and obviously I only stayed like a week extra by myself in Cairns, but it was just all really overwhelming to me and I didn't really want to put myself in that position for any more length of time than I had to. So that is essentially what happened in Australia and the reality of Australia and why I left Australia. My next plan was, what the hell do I do? Because number one, I was rapidly running out of money. Number two, I had no plans. Number three, I was on the other side of the world. Like, do I just use up the rest of my money and travel whilst I'm on the other side of the world? Do I come straight back home and start looking for a job? I didn't really know what to do, and I didn't want to make any rash decisions because, as I've said a million times in this video, I was on the other side of the world. However, there was an internship that I had been looking at even when I was in Thailand, but like timings were never right, and I was interested in that. They do placements in Europe for different sectors. I was hoping to go for a digital hospitality sector in specifically Dublin. I'm not going to say which internship this is or the name of the scheme because I obviously ended up never going, but that was kind of my plan A. I was going to head back home and then go to Dublin for an internship in digital marketing, and that was all well and good. I was in talks with them about that and it was all going ahead. When I was still in Australia, I saw basically my dream job be advertised online. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to talk about what it is yet, but basically I applied for that. It was in London, or it needed you to be like in access to London regularly, and I was like, I'd never live in London, I'll just apply for it because it's my dream job, why not, sort of thing. Like, I know I won't get it, but like, why not, sort of thing. So I did that. They rejected me, and then my plan was, on the way back to Dublin slash home, I was going to go for a week to Bangkok because I've still got some friends that are in Thailand from when I lived in Thailand teaching, and I wanted to catch up with them and visit some of the like favourite bits that I have of Bangkok again, eat some of my favourite food. So I thought, I am feeling really lonely on this other side of the world with no plan, let's just go somewhere that feels a little bit more like home on the way home, which Thailand does to me. So I flew from Cairns to Sydney, Sydney to Singapore, Singapore to Bangkok, and I spent a week in Bangkok, and it was over Songkran festival. And Songkran is something else. Songkran is basically Thai New Year, which they celebrate with a water fight essentially, because water sort of is a cleansing for them, like cleansing and preparation for the new year. I'm obviously not clued up on all of it, but that is basically how they celebrate Songkran Thai New Year. And so what it has become for all the tourists to do is to buy big water guns and go out on Koh San Road and in the streets and dunk buckets of water over people and have a massive water fight. And oh my god, Thailand was so different this time round. It was so much busier, which is lovely to see. After one day of Songkran, I got a bit sick of it because you can't leave the hostel without getting absolutely soaked, and everyone's got like the waterproof foam case thingies around their neck. Like, you can't take anything of value out on the streets during Songkran. Songkran lasts for 3 days. Special guest. So I spent the other 2 days just kind of like in the hostel, not doing much, but it was nice to sort of recuperate and have somewhere that I knew. I stayed at Back Home Backpackers, which I know and love, and they've had a recent renovation, which was so nice to see, and the people there recognised me. They said welcome back, and I honestly felt really emotional when I got to Bangkok. It just holds such a special place in my heart. So I spent a lovely week in Bangkok, and then I had decided that I was gonna go via home for 4 days before flying to Dublin. So I'm in Bangkok, and then this job that has rejected me emails me back and they say, actually, we've reworked the role and we would like to get in touch with you again for a phone call. And I'm like, okay. So I land back home. 2 days after landing back home, I have my interview, and they tell me that they want to offer me the job in London. And basically at this point I'm like, why not? I was gonna go to Dublin, may as well go to London, and it's just an opportunity that I can't pass up. This does not sound like a real story when I'm saying it out loud. I've come back from Australia, was gonna go to Dublin, and basically all that to say I'm moving to London. So what is next? I have a moving to London vlog that I'm currently in the process of filming, which I will have up for you next probably. And I do want to film some London content, like London diaries, day in the life. I was never someone that really wanted to live in Dublin. I was always like, oh, I've been there on holiday for weekends away. It's a great like holiday weekend away destination, but it's too busy. I would never live there, too expensive. But the wages are also higher in London, same way that they are in Australia, to accommodate the higher cost of living in London. Things seem to be working out really well. I've got myself a little flat with 2 other girls. Obviously got my dream job. Things seem to be looking up. I don't really know what the future holds too much. My life seems to be very like short-term future goals, but this is the sort of job that I would like to stick out for a good few years at least. Who knows where we'll go from here. So I do want to do some London content. If you have any ideas of London content or anything at all that you would like to see from me, let me know in the comments. I will say that this job involves travel, so the travel travel content I don't think will be stopping anytime soon, and obviously a lot of people are interested in London content for them coming to visit London, which I think would be quite cool. And obviously I'm not a local, so I think it'd be quite cool to see it through someone else's eyes that gets to sort of hopefully know it better than I have in the past, but still not being from there. I think will be an interesting perspective. I'm really excited about the future. It's scary because I live on such a short-term future basis. Basically, I'm packing up this room again and we're moving to London. I hope that you enjoyed this video and it answered some of the questions that you had. And I know it got a little bit depressing in the middle there. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. I just wanted to tell you things from my perspective and how we have ended up here again, basically, and how I've ended up moving to London, which I did not have on my bingo card for 2023, I'll tell you that. But please leave some content suggestions down for me in the comments and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week for a brand new video. Bye guys!